In the first shots we see a woman sitting in a subway station in tears. Her beloved husband David's funeral is about to take place. Kylie still can't believe he's gone. She makes arrangements to transport the coffin from Berlin to New York, remembering how she and David decided to sit on a bench outside the entrance the day before. In the present, Kylie stands by the snow-covered bench alone. At night, it seemed to her that the men from the house opposite were looking in her window. 6-year-old daughter Julia asks what her new room will be like. They plan to return to the house where Kylie grew up. Tomorrow is going to be a tough day for them. To keep her composure, Kylie takes a sedative. The next morning she and her daughter were going to the airport. The girl does not want to go outside, so the mother carries her to the car in her arms. In the cab, Kylie feels anxious, just as she did at the airport. At one point, she realized that her daughter was not around.
Julia?
In a panic, Kylie began looking everywhere and found Julia near a kiosk, telling her never to leave her side again. Looking out the window at the huge plane, Julia admires it. Her mother used to work as an engineer, designing engines. It was announced that the boarding of passengers on the plane had begun. Kylie and Julia were among the first to arrive. Soon the cabin began to fill with the rest of the passengers. A man sitting nearby was annoyed by noisy children. Through the window, the mother and daughter saw the coffin being brought onto the plane. Julia drew a heart on the fogged glass. Finally the plane took off. Some of the passengers felt sick. Kylie suggested that her daughter move to the last 2 rows that weren't occupied. Kylie dozed off, and when she woke up, Julia wasn't there. Nor was she in her previous seat. Kylie asked the man if he had seen a girl. He replied that he hadn't. He also said that the flight had been going on for about 3 hours. Concerned, Kylie checked the restroom, but Julia wasn't there either. The flight attendant said she saw a girl in the lounge. However, it was not her daughter. Kylie went looking further and tried to describe to the flight attendant what Julia looked like. She was puzzled. None of the passengers had seen a girl with a similar appearance. Kylie slowly began to panic. She returned to their seats, but found only Julia's teddy bear. Passengers sitting next door did not see the little girl. A flight attendant named Stephanie announced over the speakerphone that a child was lost. Some time has passed, but Julia is still missing. Kylie worries that the stress of losing the father has robbed her daughter of her sanity. The flight attendants assure her that everything will be fine. Fiona tries to distract her by talking, but Kylie becomes increasingly nervous. Passengers in adjacent seats said they did not see any baby near Kylie at all. When Kylie noticed the flight attendants making a fuss, she was frightened and demanded to know what was going on. Stephanie said the flight manifest had no record of Julia at all. That is, there is no girl on the plane. Kylie doesn't understand what's going on, because she and her daughter were the first to board the plane. To prove her point, Kylie decides to show them Julia's boarding pass, but her backpack was gone. All of Julia's belongings were missing, and Kylie thought the daughter had been kidnapped. She became hysterical and ran to the plane captain, causing anxiety among the passengers. Security officer Gene Carson stopped Julia, and when she calmed down a bit, took her to the plane captain. He tried to make sense of the situation. None of the flight attendants saw Julia as the passengers were boarding. The captain asked Kylie if she had taken alcohol or any pills. She admitted that she started taking sedatives after her husband passed away. David had fallen from the roof of the house a week earlier and died. Since there was no evidence that Julia was on board, the captain decided that Kylie is insane. The woman began to behave inappropriately and asked to search the plane, because anything could have happened to Julia. The captain ordered the staff to seat all passengers in their seats and thoroughly search the plane. Flight attendants locked the toilet cubicles and made sure all passengers fastened their seat belts. Stephanie even checked the flight electronics compartment and reported that no one was there. Jean accompanied Kylie, who continued to insist that something bad had happened to her daughter. Nor did the flight attendants abandon the search. Suddenly Kylie noticed an Arab whose face seemed familiar. Abaid didn't like this interrogation. Since the search was inconclusive, Kylie demanded to see the captain again. He assured her that there was no way Julia could have been taken away by an outsider, since all the passengers were now in their seats. Kylie's arguments seemed unconvincing to the captain, since no one had seen the girl on board. He asks Jean to make sure that Kylie does not leave the passenger cabin. Suddenly Kylie remembered where she saw that same man. She attacked Abaid with accusation, claiming that yesterday he and his friend Ahmed had been staring at the window of their apartment.
I have never seen this woman before in my life.
Neither have I.
Kylie is convinced that they are the ones involved in Julia's disappearance. The men claim that they hadn't left the hotel all day yesterday. To prove his claim, Abade provided a check. Some of the passengers were supportive of Kylie, while others thought she was crazy. Continuing to insist on her own, she again pounced on Abade. Jean was barely able to pull her away. He is already convinced that the woman is totally inadequate. However, Kylie is still convinced that the Arabs are involved in what happened. Someone on the crew may be helping them and has crossed Julia's name off the passenger manifest. The captain turned off the alarm and the passengers began to walk through the cabin again. When Kylie went to the captain with claims, he reported that Julia passed away. The Berlin hospital confirmed it. The daughter had fallen from the roof with her father. Kylie can't believe it, because Julia was walking in the park when David died. Everything going on around her seems really crazy. The captain feels sorry for Kylie, who has suffered a great tragedy, but he cannot allow her to endanger the other passengers. On the commander's orders, Jean was about to escort Kylie to her seat, but the woman wasn't going to give up. She was stopped by Abade. When she woke up, a woman who turned out to be a psychotherapist spoke to her. She offered Kylie her help and was willing to listen to her. In tears, Kylie admitted that her husband David was unhappy, but tried never to upset her. Kylie claimed that Julia couldn't sleep at last night, and she soothed her. The psychotherapist said it is a reaction to a severe shock. Kylie has to accept what happened and let her grief out. Suddenly Kylie saw a heart on the fogged glass. The same heart Julia had drawn before the plane took off. She realized that her daughter was on board. Kylie said she needed to be alone. The psychotherapist convinced Jean that Kylie was not a threat to herself or the others. Jean walked her to the restroom and uncuffed her. After locking the door, Kylie climbed into the aircraft compartment where the electronics were controlled.
Hey!
I'll be right out!
Since she was good with technology, she could easily activate the button that gave passengers oxygen masks. The people in the cabin panicked. When Kylie turned off the power, panic escalated. She took advantage of the commotion and made her way to the elevator, while one of the passengers attacked the Arabs with accusations. Since the plane's pressure was normal, the captain guessed that Kylie was involved. He and Jean set out to find the woman who kept calling for her daughter.
Julia!
Kylie is convinced that Julia is alive. Finding a vehicle being transported, Kylie broke the glass in it, but Julia was not there. Soon she saw the coffin. Kylie is very scared, because no one believed her and didn't want to help. Jean found Kylie and arrested her, reporting that the pilot was landing the plane because of an emergency situation. All the people were outraged over the unplanned landing. Kylie asked Jean why the coffin was alone if they claimed Julia was also passed away. The passengers applauded Jean, who arrested the criminal. Kylie remained convinced that Julia was alive. She begged Jean to let her continue her search until the plane landed. He asked Stephanie to keep an eye on Kylie while he talked to the commander. However, Jean went to a completely different place instead. Meanwhile, Kylie asked Stephanie where she was when everyone was looking for Julia.
I'm very sorry for your loss, ma'am.
Jean opened the coffin, which was stuffed with explosives, and took the remote control. He placed the explosive devices next to Julia, who was lying unconscious in the flight electronics compartment. Jean lied to the commander about Kylie being a terrorist. He said she was demanding $50 million and an airplane, so the captain should contact the airline as soon as possible and ask for the money to be transferred. Stephanie, who is in cahoots with Jean, shares her fears with him. She thinks that Kylie knows everything. Jean is sure everything is going according to plan. Most importantly, they were able to convince everyone that Kylie is crazy. The captain informed Jean that the money had been transferred. He uncuffed Kylie, promising that after they landed, FBI agents would test the theory that the girl was missing. Kylie thanked him for his help. The plane landed. Immediately the police arrived. Jean advised Kylie not to confront anyone and to be quiet. When all the passengers got off the plane, Kylie asked the captain to start searching the plane immediately. When the captain said that the money had been transferred to her account and the plane was prepared as she demanded, Kylie was puzzled. She didn't understand what the commander meant. Looking outside, Kylie saw how wary everyone around her was. She realized that Jean was trying to set her up. Kylie wants one thing, to get her daughter back. But she'll be the first to get hurt if Jean blows up the plane. Kylie had no choice but to return aboard. When the captain asked if there would be any other conditions, she demanded that Jean's gun be taken away. The commander left, and Kylie, seizing the moment, knocked out Gene with a fire extinguisher and handcuffed him, and then pulled the explosive device control panel out of his pocket. Kylie guessed that Julia was hidden in the avionics compartment and ran there. Gene pulled out his gun at that moment and managed to free himself, rushing after Kylie. She locked the door. Gene began to persuade her to surrender, for nobody would believe her or come to aid. Gene's accomplices made sure that David died, because coffins are not checked for anything suspicious. Kylie was chosen because she is familiar with the mechanics of a plane, so it would be easy to blame her for the attempted hijacking. Kylie tried to figure out how to get into the onboard electronics compartment. Stephanie stood in her way in the cabin. Kylie wasn't afraid of her, because the flight attendant was very frightened of what was happening. Kylie knocked her out and made her way into the flight electronics compartment. Gene saw that Stephanie had escaped. Meanwhile, Kylie found Julia, who was still unconscious. While David tried to sneak into the flight electronics bay, Kylie took Julia in her arms and hid. Gene tried to convince Kylie that no one would save her, because everyone would believe the security officer, not her. After getting out with her daughter, Kylie sealed the compartment and activated the explosive device. All the people around were shocked as Kylie carried her daughter out in her arms, who everyone claimed was not on the plane. Later, when the worst was over, the captain approached Kylie and apologized for not believing her right away. Stephanie was arrested. All the passengers looked with admiration at Kylie, who was looking for her daughter, no matter what. Julia finally woke up. Now everything will be fine. Before Kylie left, Abaid handed her the bag. Please subscribe to the channel.